record. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that the other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials have been provided by members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I, the chair, knows otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of the members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
That's the fastest I've ever heard that said.
We're trying our best these days. We really
that other might like to tape you and just sort of run it.
Yeah, right. Wouldn't that make life a little bit easier?
For every other meeting, we're just going to have you do it.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so let's jump into the agenda. May I have a silly as this sounds, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So
moved.
Okay, motion was made by Linda and seconded by Tucker. We're going to do a roll call vote. Curtis?
We just lost him.
Okay, never mind. Okay, Linda?
Yeah, aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Tucker?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
And the chair, John Brescher, votes aye. Now I have to admit Curtis back in. Okay.
Are you trying to sign back in?
He is. We have a waiting room. Curtis, welcome back. All right, and I'm going to be taking the minutes if that's okay with everyone. Okay, so next item on our agenda is public comment, seeing as there are still no members of the public for these meetings. Yes, Campbell.
So I had a little bit of a suggestion here. I notice it happens on the other boards that maybe you could make an announcement. I mean, I'm sure there probably isn't watching, but let's say there were. You could make an announcement about how to make public comment in case someone in future would like to do that.
Yeah, the YouTube
Sure.
thing.
Yeah, it's certainly via YouTube. We did have our first Zoom meeting in June. We did have somebody attend or basically observe us. She did not make any comments necessarily, I didn't think, but she was just curious about what we were doing, and she was on in the background, so to speak.
John, do you have access to the YouTube so you can see if people ask questions or post comments?
You know,
You're the host, you're supposed to have access to that YouTube.
It's a good point, Linda. I don't know that I do, but let me, if it's all the same to you all, I will literally check right now because.
But John, is this meeting being like live cast versus recorded and played later?
You know, I think it's being recorded and played later. I don't think we have the pleasure of sort of live cast, which is
I know in the case of the Affordable Housing Trust, that's how it works, so that anyone from the public who would like to comment or participate, you know, the Zoom link is right on the agenda. You can come right in here.
You know, let me check with Erica to see where we are with that. Because honestly, I assume that everybody can just come in via the Zoom app, but maybe it is through YouTube. It's easy enough to check, and I'll gladly do so just to make sure we know so we can give instructions to the public. Yes,
The YouTube link is on the agenda as well.
Right.
So just to follow up on that, I was also thinking if you put in an email address for anyone that wanted to email, because I know that sometimes this whole technology thing is not working for people. Mm-hmm. But if there were an email address that you could give out with each you know, meeting a public comment or something to let people know where they could send an email if they wanted to email a public comment that could then be read at the meeting.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I assume that they would, and this actually is a nice way to segue into our discussion from last time. But I assume that people would be able to look at the town's website, look up the government study committee, and I believe there's an email address there. Now, that being said, is that what a lay person would know to do? And again, that can sort of go back to our discussion from last month about making sure that the public knows what to do. Yes, Tucker.
Yeah, so I just took a quick look at the agenda, and the wording around the YouTube channel is the same as the Affordable Housing Trust. This will be aired later, so
Okay.
the comments cannot come through that. People would need to log in to this Zoom, which they are free to, and that address is on the agenda.
Okay. All right. Well, I think these are good suggestions, and I'll ask Erica about sort of protocol, making sure that the public can participate in means other than Zoom if they want, just to be on the safe side. So, all right. So there were comments on the minutes. Campbell had some that she was kind enough to email me, and Rick had some comments too. So I suggest that we push the minutes off to the next meeting so we can revise them accordingly.
So moved.
Okay, motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We'll do the roll call vote of pushing them back. Tucker?
I'm here.
All right.
Sorry. I'm lit.
Aye, right on. Linda?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Rick?
Aye.
Curtis?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
And the chair, John Brescher, votes aye as well. Okay, so we push the meeting minutes off to the next meeting to continue. So let's dive into again the meat of the discussion today, which will be the discussion of our update to the select board. So I made some of those. I took into account our comments from the last meeting, and I incorporated some of those comments into the memo. I hope everyone has had a chance to look through it. If you haven't, that's a-okay. But just let me know if you have any sort of comments or concerns, or we can discuss these further, or whether or not they look good. I mean, just I'll open up any of the discussions.
What is the schedule for submitting this draft to the select board?
It's a good question, Curtis. I'm not sure that we have one other than to say that we're going to try to do it by the end of the summer. Do you want to try to come up with a concrete date?
Nope, I actually want to read your red lines a little more carefully, and so I think we need a little deferral on it, or at least I do.
That's fine. Yes, Campbell.
So I just had one comment on the items reviewed on number 1.
Sure.
And it could just be me, but it says the committee without making any determination reviewed 4 types, but I'm only seeing 3 types listed, am I not? Town council with mayor, town manager, representative with town manager, town meeting with town manager. Am I missing something?
Mayor, you have mayor or town, you have a town council, a mayor, town meeting open, and representative town meeting of the. Perhaps that needs to be stated more
Sure.
clearly.
More clearly, that's absolutely fine. That's an easy enough change to make, but it's a good catch for sure.
Down should match the number you have. That's all.
So the other question, which actually is a good segue in this. So the way that I had this set up was that we were basically sort of giving an outline, maybe not even that, just listing the types of town meetings or forms of government, and then attaching our materials that we submitted to town meeting as sort of, hey, this is a pretty excellent, in my opinion, synopsis of the 4 types of town government. I mean, do you think it makes sense to do that, or to just list them in the body of this document?
No, I think your summary and then referencing material is the way to, would like to delve further, you know, into it. I think the summary is very good. I would look at some of the wording maybe for the factors and considerations that were reviewed, but other than that, I would try and keep the report, you know, the update a thing, and then with supporting materials.
Okay, that's works for me. So I know Curtis wants more time to digest my red line changes, and that's perfectly fine. Rather than going through the red line changes, then do you want to, as we did last time, start tackling some of the other paragraphs that I had in there?
Okay. If we could start by continue on number 1 and look at the factors and considerations. The second bullet just seems, maybe it's an unfinished sentence, a cumbersome election process for representatives. So I can see that.
Representative town meeting, you mean?
Correct.
Right. Starts with A, and so it's sort of making an opinion that it's cumbersome, or are we looking at the cumbersomeness of the election process?
Sure.
Or I'm not sure what you were looking at there as far as what was cumbersome.
Sure. Quite frankly, most of this, just about all the information has come from our notes in the past, and so they may have just been literally just a note at the time for saying it could be a cumbersome process. I don't think, without making any judgment on that, and that's totally fine for us to then expand on it and say, well, this is what we think it is, or this is what we don't think it is.
Well, but in terms of a factor or consideration, the factors is the cumbersomeness of the election process in any of the, see what I mean? So I think it's just a wording versus like, get it, anything else.
Sure.
Well,
Yes,
John?
Rick. Yes.
You know, I guess you could change cumbersome to a different election process for each form of government or something. That wouldn't have a sort of an adjective to it.
Sure.
Just trying to pick a different word if that helps.
Yeah. No.
Address Campbell's point.
No, I think it's a good idea. Okay, so we can certainly wordsmith that area as well.
So, and other than that, I think it's all fine. It's just that one seems clumsy.
Sure.
You can always attach a ballot from Falmouth to let people know what they're up to.
Quite right. Quite right. Okay. Anything else on section 1 that anyone wants to go over?
Just one question. Maybe
Yes,
this
sir.
is more for Curtis.
Please.
You know, the summary sheet we got, I think, from the state site was helpful, but at some point, I think we had, getting down to the more nitty gritty details about things. I'm not quite sure where to go. Somebody might have a question and say, well, if I'm not a representative, can I submit a warrant article with 10 signatures still and comment at the meeting?
I don't think that's
And I'm not sure that's a good example, but I think there are going to be a number of things like that eventually need to be explained to people so they know what the differences are.
Right, for the final report or for the update?
I think maybe the final, but you know, I see this as kind of a living document, and it sort of has a way to morph into a longer document, but it could be version B, has an opportunity to add some of those kinds of things that are going to help us maybe make a decision at some point. Anyway, that's all.
I think that makes sense. I think we can do all these things. I think, Rick, I think it's accurate to say that this is a living document. I mean, I think that's sort of the critical component and something that we need to explain to the select board sort of during the presentation. This is where we are, but by no means is this the end. You know, there is more.
Right, John. And to me, it's almost like our agenda morphs out of this. It's the way I looked at the issues pages we circulated.
Yep.
Those were all items we discussed at some point. And we've only, as I mentioned last time, sorry to sound like a broken record, we've only voted on, I recall, 2 of those issues in the form of recommendations that we are willing to support. So
Right.
all the others are out there just under consideration at the moment.
Okay, so moving on to more parts of the memo. Unless anyone suggests otherwise, we went through 1 through 5, or at least discussed those last time. And you can sort of see the red line changes, which we can discuss at our next meeting as well. But I would suggest let's try to get through I'm sorry, someone say anything?
Can we stay on 5 for a second?
Sure, let's go to 5 and then we'll go 6, 7, and if we can get to up to 8 and 9, fantastic. But let's go back to 5.
I thought at some point I brought up that all our regulatory boards should be elected, like Concom and ZBA, along with the planning board and who am I missing there?
So Linda,
Linda, was that something that the committee followed through on each of those, or was that just a suggestion that
No,
was?
it was a suggestion, but it was something that came up the first time when we did the charter to begin with.
So
The
then
planning board was left there, HDC because of state statute and planning board because of state statute was there. But we had talked at length back in the day about the Concom and the ZBA being elected as well, because it takes it out of the political football and the cronyism. And then you're accountable to the public on these regulatory boards, which have incredible impact on people in the community. So I'm still after that. I have not let that go. I brought that up in the very first meeting.
Linda, I'm going to jump in for a second. So in our discussion last 2 weeks ago, basically we sort of circled around that same idea in as much as we said, yeah, we definitely remember bringing this up in one of our very first meetings, frankly.
We never got back to it.
This was one of those discussion items that we absolutely said, oh, we should look at this. And to the best of all of our recollection, we never did anything with it other than to say, you know what, this is something we should look at.
Right,
And
which
we
we're
didn't make
bringing
a
up again.
recommendation. We didn't say, oh, well, we need to do X, Y, or Z. Just that, boy, this is an issue that is out there and needs to be or should be examined, or at least we discussed that again. I want to say back in 2017, maybe, or 2018, whenever we started this. And sort of our conclusion at the end of last meeting, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, was effectively to almost punt on this issue and add it to the part, not to say that it's going away, but to address it in our Parks and Rec paragraph, Parks and Rec discussion.
Well, Parks and Rec is
knowing that
different.
it needs to be addressed.
All right, so we're not done with that discussion then.
I don't think we are. I think we effectively decided to relocate it, if that makes sense. Sort of the way, again, going back to our last meeting, we talked about the organizational chart of the town, and then we had a question about code enforcement. And after we discussed it, we said, boy, again, this is just my recollection, so please correct me if I'm wrong. boy, doesn't it make sense if we start to combine the two of organizational and code enforcement, because it is a reasonable assumption that the layperson doesn't know A, the organizational chart of the town, or B, where they would need to go for code enforcement, and that the two can sort of be married together.
Well,
And-
there's totally separate issues. Whether we elect them or not is a totally separate issue. Parks and Rec is under state statute. So that's a different issue as well, as far as departmental responsibilities. The election of these particular boards, and maybe even throw in the airport commission, because that's a boondoggle all in itself. But these boards, whether they're elected or appointed by the selectmen or select board, is different from the Parks and Rec issue, and it's different from code enforcement entirely. So that's why I want at some point here to have a discussion about those two entities separate from everything else, because they're not really involved with the other entities or their issues.
Okay. I mean, I think ultimately we're going to have to discuss it in some capacity.
Okay.
But we did not think that last meeting was sort of the time or the place.
Right. So I just want to make sure this has not fallen
Yep.
off the radar.
Yes, Rick.
So on number 5, we might just change the comment to read this topic of the election or appointment of certain regulatory committees is one we will continue to discuss during the course of our meetings. Or
Yes.
something like that. I think that just says, it's not over, it's an
Right.
infant.
Requires further study.
I like that. There you go.
I'm good for sound bites, guys.
Very, 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 very good. All right. Okay. So if that all makes sense, I'd say let's move on to this should be a good one. The HTC Charter.
Just to give you an update,
Oh,
we're not doing that at this level. We are not touching it.
I
Okay,
would
hold
I
on,
would
Linda. Hold on.
to
Yes,
review-
Campbell.
review some of the information I found in the notes from October 19th, 2019, when this issue was resolved, I think, to some degree. At that time, the notes reflect that the committee felt it best to table this HDC charter change and not pursue amendments regarding anything with that. So that was the decision that was made.
All right, the
On
language on that
Please,
has to
Go
change
ahead.
because we're dealing with it. I've already done a whole rewrite. Andrew and I did it a long time ago. We just have to get buy-in from certain entities. But it is not within our scope to touch that charter because that's a state special act, which is not something we're involved with down here in this group at all. So what we should do is it's better left to other entities to work out the charter changes because there's a lot of errors in the chart and in the thing up at the state. There's
So-
nothing we can do with it
So
here.
let me ask this then. Yeah, and I think that's fine. How should we sort of say that? I mean, what's the best way to say we think that it's a good thing to change? It's going to be changed. It's not us.
And then to say this committee is not empowered to make any recommendations on the state special act. And that's it.
Sound reasonable enough to others?
Nor do you ever want to read the act.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
Rick.
I agree. I just the empowered is, I mean, we might find that if you use it here, you might want to use it in other places. So I
Or
would,
within our scope.
I would
within our
prefer to
scope.
just say, the committee just studied the matter and felt it was better to leave it as is until it's further developed by the select board or town meeting or the HDC itself or something
Another
like
entity.
that.
Yeah, just say another
Okay.
entity, a
All right.
different entity.
Not making too much sausage here. This works. Okay, cool. Okay. Any other comments on number 6? I think that all makes sense for now.
So John, just
Yes, sir.
just to clarify for me, so are you going to reference the special legislation in how you're writing it up?
I wasn't going to, but that may make sense.
It's called,
I think you just,
it's called the special act.
yeah, I would just reference it somewhere in there.
Okay.
That implies it's not just us.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that works for me.
Your toes would curl if you tried to read it and make any sense out of it.
We read enough of these right now. All right, so number 7 is the town government study committee itself. At one point we talked about whether or not our role is actually clearly defined and delineated in the charter. And I'm not, I mean, it's sort of, I always find these things interesting where we're talking about ourselves and like regulating ourselves and talking about what other committees should be doing in the future, etc. And so it's a good opportunity if we think that we need to better clarify or further expand or retract some of our roles and responsibilities. And again, other than saying that we brought this topic up very early on in our discussions, I'm not sure we ever came to any type of conclusion. Yes, Campbell.
So I'm wondering, just because in my own mind, I'm thinking, well, I'd like to reread that. Would it be possible to put number 7 on to the next meeting and we could all take the time to review what the charter does say about the committee, its formation and its role, what it's supposed to do? Would that be something anyone would be in agreement with?
I agree with that. I agree with that. I just think that the only thing it really is clear about is that every couple of years we have to review it or something. Isn't that pretty? That's pretty clear.
Curtis.
My recollection is that we are supposed to be convened every 5 years to review the charter, but I don't think we need to be in the charter to have that. Whatever the process was from the last one that got us appointed now is adequate as long as every 5 years we do have a convened committee or a committee appointed and do the review.
All right, well, again, I think what's going to be interesting is I think it's a good idea for us to take a look through the actual, the literal language in the charter as it relates to the government study committee. My recollection is that it will take us a solid maybe 2 minutes to read because there isn't too much in there.
Are we in the charter?
Yeah, of us in the charter.
Are we
my
in
recollection is it's review the form of government and report back to town meeting. But anyway, yeah, go ahead, Rick.
I've got it up and I'm doing a search for the word review, and I haven't found it yet. It may be a bylaw. I'm not sure which it is.
Okay.
But in any case, if we're having a discussion, I think we need the mission statement as assigned on our website, which is a statement. And we need the underlined bylaw or charter paragraph attached to our agenda. We can all help you find these things so it's available to everybody for the discussion.
I think that's an excellent idea. Would make a whole lot of sense. Okay. All right. So we'll make sure we deal with number 7 next meeting. So that takes us down the line to number 8, which is a licensing board.
Well, I think they've already pretty much done that, but I think a licensing board will take care of the liquor licenses and all that. And I think that's a good idea vis-a-vis when they separated the Board of Health out. I think they should separate this out. I'm in full support of this.
I am, yes, Rick, please.
That's all right. It just seemed to me, we were told early on, I think by Lauren, but I'm not sure, that this can be done by the select board taking its own action. And my recollection of our discussion was that we were all basically supportive if they chose to do that. And that our comment would be just that. You have the power. It doesn't need to be a charter provision or bylaw. You can take whatever action is necessary to set it up with the appropriate parameters. Good luck.
I think there's a bit of irony in that, in as much as we heard, I believe this was a recommendation or a request, for lack of a better term, that either came from town administration itself or members of the select board saying, boy, it would be really swell if we could set up a licensing our own licensing board.
Let's simply say that we support the creation of a separate licensing board.
I think it already says that. It says it seemed prudent to the committee that if the select board deems it appropriate to create its own licensing committee, this could be administratively and would not need any type of charter amendment. I think that's included in the Paragon wrote. So I
Good.
pretty bad.
Yep,
Cool.
it's good the way it is then.
Yes. All right. Hey, what little things we can get, we'll do. All right, great. So,
John,
Yes.
I think the same approach applies to the next item, number 9, that they can set up a commission. And, you know, they have this part group, they ignored it. Now with the this year's situation, they're doing something else.
oh, Curtis, I think we lost you, pal.
Licensing board.
I think we lost you towards the end of that. Oh, I
I
think the
say
last
we
I heard.
do the same thing with the parking commission as we're doing with the licensing commission.
Okay, forgive me if I'm wrong. I thought that, I feel like you may know better than anyone here. I thought that they were going to set up this parking commission and then they bailed on it at the last minute.
That's
They
my
set it up. There is a parking commission. It's called a regional parking authority or something. And then they totally ignored it and they went ahead and did their own gig. So, you know, I don't want to fight it now, frankly, with the situation this year. I just think they can set up a parking commission if they want to, like a licensing commission.
Rick, you had your hand up. Anything?
Well, I mean, they did go to town meeting, which voted to support an article to allow the board to set up a parking district and gave them whatever powers that incorporated. So it's similar to what Curtis is saying. It's within their power, but I think we should comment on the fact that town meeting took action and it's in the board's hands and they don't need any help from us or non-help.
Right.
Right.
Okay. That.
Hey, do we know what annual town meeting that was so that we could reference it?
I thought it was
years ago.
19.
Yeah, a couple of
Yeah, it
years
was
ago, or
pretty
last
recent.
year.
I mean,
Yeah.
again, we can find that and we could even
Sure.
attach it in our documentation for item number 9 or whatever.
Right.
I'd be happy to find that, John. I'll take
I
that.
think it may be 18, but
Yeah, I
yes.
think it's a
Okay,
couple of
well,
years.
That sounds right, Tucker.
Okay. Okay. So we can attach that warrant. We can figure out which warrant article that is and either reference it or just attach the actual language from the warrant article in there.
And that it passed at town meetings. So.
Right.
I could get the certified result down the hall if that's helpful to have.
Okay, well, that's easier. Good for you. You got it. There's nothing like being able to walk down the hall, Tucker.
I'm jealous that you're loud in the building.
Right. Right.
All right, so that gets us to number 10. Sewer Commission. Now, yeah, Rick, go ahead.
Well, I think this is again similar to a license commission, but a sewer commission I think has more issues that we all would want to understand before we recommend a separate sewer commission. That is what powers it's going to contain, like setting rates, capital projects on its own or not. So
Campbell.
that's why I'm reluctant.
It
Sure.
sounds, as Rick's describing it, it's sounding like the establishment of a sewer commission would in some way be part of a charter.
So,
Like the water department is part of a charter, the airport commission is part of a charter, park and rec in the same grouping with that as a semi-independent, yet with stated job description.
Yeah,
What happened?
Well, they can't get rid of the Parks and Rec under state code, under state law. What has happened is that they got rid of the funding for it, so it doesn't really exist as a administrative office like it did when we first created it 20 years ago. And that's why we have fields. I'll just give you an example, guys, just to illustrate how desperate this is. The 2 turf fields that the CPC paid for out at the new, the grass fields out there where we have the new turf field, have completely broken down because they are not managing it. Unlike when the Parks and Rec Commission had a staff and an office, they took care of the fields over at the Delta fields. We now have a situation where the DPW has done nothing to the grass fields where they have the drive-in now. And we're going to have to get onto it now. We had a meeting about it yesterday. So Parks and Rec ran the bathhouses, who got what field to play softball versus soccer versus rugby versus lacrosse. They kept the buildings up out at the Delta fields. They managed the bathrooms. They painted them. When it first went over to, when it first went away from the Parks and Rec to Kara, whose name shall go down in infamy, the overflowed septic out at Dionis, and people were walking through raw septic. This is why the Parks and Rec has to come back.
Okay, but we're not talking about Parks and Rec right now. So let's try to circle back to what we are dealing with.
We're on 11 still?
No, I don't believe we're on 11. I think we're still
We're on 10.
dealing with sewer. I mean,
Oh, sewer. I thought we'd already just figured that was good. Whatever you're doing there is good.
no, that was licensing and parking. Sewer is a little bit trickier. Yes, Curtis, I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah, my concern about the sewer commission is any action taken by a sewer authority, whatever it is, has budget implications. And I don't see how they can be independent of the town funding management.
So you're saying that this would be more of an advisory board then versus a commission? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm on a Zoom meeting right now, a government study. What's up?
What I'm getting at is a decision by a commission that affects funding has to go through the town.
Hold on a second. Let me put myself on mute here.
Rick, please.
Yeah, 2 things. Number one, Curtis, that's true of any commission. The airport commission funding goes through town already. So I don't think we have to worry about our vote on it. But there are a lot of, there is, just to point out, there is, for example, an existing legal sewer commission that is populated by the select board. It's the same with the landfill, or public works. There are some technical, and I don't really recall what that means, but just to point out they exist. The select board occasionally acts as the sewer commissioners. It occasionally acts as the public, as the dump in effect. So there are structures someplace that exist already.
So if I may chime in for a minute here, I think this is fantastic information to have and to identify. The way, in other words, that I feel like the phrase that we may or may not want to include in this recommendation or just analysis would be unintended consequences. On its face, something like this seems like a relatively simple thing, but I think Rick Campbell and Curtis and everyone's identified that there are, it goes a bit deeper than that. I mean, I believe the last time I spoke with either David Gray or Libby about it, there was talk, and I mean, we were talking real sort of nascent stages of somehow combining this with water, like having one large commission, whether it be, or modeling the sewer commission after the water commission. And if that's the case, that's when they want to do that, that's their prerogative, but there's a whole lot of vetting and a whole lot of checks and balances that need to be done for this. Campbell.
So it sounds like maybe what we want to say here is what you have here, but that the committee feels that a sewer commission should be looking into it should be continued by the, select board and the town. Right, we're recommending or are
Right.
updated. We think that this is a viable option, a sewer commission, but needs to be fleshed out a bit more before one actually
Define
makes.
more carefully.
Yeah, it's just, I'm worried because it deals with enterprise accounts, it deals with funding, it deals with all kinds of stuff. And that's where it gets a little squirrely as opposed to a Parks and Rec, which is in the regular line item budget.
Yes, Curtis, please.
John, my apologies. I have to leave the meeting because I am meeting at St. Paul's with the reopening of the church from the diocese. So I have to
Understood.
be there at 11, and I'm going to excuse myself.
Thank you, Curtis.
You're
You will.
excused.
Church is
Well, we
online every Sunday.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Curtis.
Okay.
John, just a small thing, because I think we already have a sewer commissioners technically. We could say set up a separate or independent or some other adjective before the sewer commission. Because the board does act as the
Right.
sewer commission
okay.
right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would maybe clarify what we're talking about.
Okay. I think that works. Okay. Anything else on sewer?
Everybody's
What-
favorite subject.
What do you have to?
So, all right. So, Wanacom and water. That's
Stay
the
away
next
from
one.
it. Stay away from it. The only
That's-
reason I'm saying that is because these both came up at nauseum on the original Charter Commission. And there was a lot of pushback, and we're going to get pushback again. The issue is who do they report to? And they report to their staffs, report to their commissions, and they don't necessarily report to Libby. So Libby
Right.
doesn't, and the select board doesn't have a lot of control except to a point here. So there's been this argument for what, 20 some odd years about how to get them to sort of be more integrated administratively, at least, to the town government and the board and the select board. I don't think we're going to solve this.
No, but it would, given the current situation with the testing that was revealed,
Yeah.
which leads you to believe they just avoided testing for that particular thing. I think transparency may be the issue that, that there, accountability and transparency needs to be part of this. That's
Because frankly, I don't think the select board have the ability to force the airport to run water to those guys on Monahasset. And it's both sides of Monahasset, by the way. I've got a client directly across the street from these guys, and they're all crazed. So it's just, I don't think the select board can force the airport to pay for water to come down there. It's over on Evergreen behind some of these properties.
no, but if
There's
Hold
no
on.
control.
Hold on. Rick, you had your hand up.
Well, we're on number 11, right?
Yes, with integration of Wanacom and air.
Well, let me just mention I think what developed this initially, there was actually a draft article, and it had more to do with such things as equal salary administration programs across the water company and the airport and the town. And that is a touchy political issue, and that article, which had been drafted, was set aside at a town, I think it's actually in the warrant someplace, and was not acted upon. So I think this is about that, not so much about the town manager running the water company or the airport. Am I making the distinction clear?
You are, and so you absolutely are. The question that I have, and again, one of the problems with this is we've been doing this for so long. We've been hearing from so many people throughout the last 3 years or so. I can't remember who brought this up to us. I feel like somebody did, and I think you were right about this, Rick. That it involved. It was because of a warrant article.
That's, John, this came from town administration
Yes.
because they're the party that had to deal with the inequities of salary ranges and other issues. And you had someone doing job description A in the town finance department, and the same thing in the airport and the water company, and someone was getting paid, 50% more for the same responsibilities. And it caused a great deal of consternation. And the article was attempting to resolve those inequities.
It
Yes,
also
Campbell.
came up, it also came up because of the problems that Clifford, all the problems that were at the airport. And then they started looking at how do we know what's going on before the crap hits the fan. And that also started this conversation of how we get more integration with the town.
Yes, Campbell.
So I would like to see if we could find that draft article that was put aside. I think that would be the basis of any deeper knowledge of what's going on here. And then we could maybe make a recommendation to that. I mean, it may be that it should still be recommended, and it's just going to take finding the right political moment to move it forward, but it doesn't, the political side of it shouldn't negate the efficacy of the article if we read it and find that it is the correct way to go or something like that. We could just, ditto the last study group that felt it was important as well. And here we could just say something about, continuing to look into this, or, something like that. Like,
I think your language about accountability and transparency are pretty critical words involving both of these enterprise accounts.
But Linda, sorry, I like those words, but they apply to everybody.
Yeah.
Not just these folks. They apply to the town. They apply, across government. So I'm not sure.
But they're not accountable to Libby, neither one of them.
But they are accountable to their boards and commissions. And if we're unhappy as citizens, or the Board of Selectmen is unhappy with their performance, they appoint the airport commissioners and can change them appropriate as they wish. So I think there is accountability in that sense.
But it doesn't compel them to be in constant contact with administration. If there's a problem like what Clifford unearthed out there, the town should have been made aware of it before we had to bite the bullet on it.
Right, and so the board members at that time exited their responsibilities. One of them resigned his position. So he became—
Yeah, but it was all after the fact. It was all after the fact.
I understand, Linda, but you can't mandate good communication by bylaw.
Yes, you
thou
can.
shalt have good communication doesn't make it happen.
You can
That
through
would
the
be
charter.
nice.
You can through the charter as to establish a formal response or something. But right now, the two are operating on their own with no accountability to even inform Libby that there's a problem.
well, like I said, I think the sort of circling this one like we did 7 and trying to get a little more information on it regarding the draft article that was tabled would be beneficial. And then I think either we can say we're doing that, or we can pull it and put it under a list of, issues we're continuing to look at the end of the update.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay. All right. So that brings us. Yeah. I'm not so I'm trying to keep the meeting at about an hour. Unless anyone has a great burning desire to wax poetic about this for what I imagine to be the next half hour, 45 minutes, my suggestion would be for either Campbell or Linda or both to work on comments and send them for our next meeting. Campbell, please.
So I just had a quick comment. Like I said, I had been reviewing some of our minutes as we've gone over these issues to try and remind myself of what we had talked about. So Park and Rec is mentioned and discussed in the minutes of October 21, November 21, and December 19. I'm just putting that out there if you want to start with this next time or something. Like I said, I think, you know, if we review what the minutes are, I can come up with something, but I think it was just inconsistencies. And in the end, we had, you know, this was a specific charter area that we had charged Lauren with reviewing.
Yep.
And we had like next to zero, that would be below zero response from her regarding this, which I think tells you a lot about the efficacy of our town review process. But anyway, that aside, that's sort of where this sits. But Linda, do you want to try and work together to come up with,
Come up with something, because
Yeah.
I feel, as you know, I feel I'm not going to wax again on this.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about this because I was instrumental in getting the Parks and Rec started in the first place.
I get that, Linda. So what I'm trying to get to is we understand the issues, and basically on this issue, we're awaiting the decision of the annual town meeting on Maria's warrant article. I don't have the number for that warrant article, but that would be my final under is that we really can't move forward until we find out what the results of the town meeting. And I believe that was called and will be
Yes.
as yet unset town meeting redo. And I know they're not set a date because they have to act within 30 days of any date that they set. So this may all come up in 2021. I'm, you know, but I thought it would be a good ending sentence there to sort of finish off where we're waiting for the results from Lauren's review of this article and the annual town meeting. Because if they do, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm sure Linda's fingers are crossed with me, if they do really designate a director or someone to be in charge of the Park and Rec's grounds and et cetera, you know, that would alleviate a lot of the inconsistencies that are currently sitting out there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
yeah. I mean,
so we can.
there's so much to say on this, and still at the same time, to a degree, we're waiting, and it's
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought just a little summary of the inconsistencies that we found, the direction in which the committee sent that, and the outcome of the warrant. And I think that would sum that up.
Because my goal is to reestablish the Parks and Rec department under the Parks and Rec Commission, which is what it was from the very beginning. So
Well,
that's
personally,
pretty much it.
it isn't getting to it.
So this seems like a good place to wrap up.
I
Yes.
think you're right. I think that's a good way to nice way to have some closure for the meeting, Tucker. Thank
Would
you.
you like a motion to adjourn?
Not yet, because
All right.
we need to. So first off, and this is all I think we've covered under the discussion of our future responsibilities of the committee. Our future responsibilities. We are going to keep working through this memo. We're making great progress. We're going to make revisions to the memo. We're going to look up these items. I'm going to send out Zoom links via email. We'll send out all sorts of information for our next meeting. Which, why don't we schedule now if possible? Are 10 a.m.s working for people these days?
That
Sure.
seems to be when all my meetings are.
And what about Wednesdays?
Sure.
Yeah,
Wednesday's a good day for the Zoom account availability for the town.
Seems that way. Oddly enough, I have not had any issues in scheduling a meeting through through this on these. They kept saying, oh, well, make sure you schedule way in advance because we're going to have so many meetings, but this seems to be working. Do you want to do another 2 weeks?
I've got a dentist appointment on the 5th at 10.
Oh, nobody wants that. How about the 12th?
I'm fine with that.
All right, that'll give us more time to get everything done too. So let's say August 12th at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I will schedule that.
Yeah, so I have.
Uh-oh.
You got a
I have
dentist
dental
appointment?
I have one at 11:15, so I'll just leave when I have to. No
We'll
problem.
try to keep it to an hour again.
That's all right.
All right, so last thing on the agenda then would be any other business?
Nope.
If not, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to
So-
adjourn?
Moved and
Second.
seconded. All right, let's see. All those in favor, Linda Williams,
Yep.
Tucker,
Aye.
Rick Atherton,
Aye.
Campbell Sutton,
Aye.
John Brescher, the chair, votes aye as well. All right, everyone, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in a few weeks.
Okie
All
dokie.
right.
All right, take care.
Bye.